Hey everyone, and welcome to Higher Ed Matters. Today it's just you and me, Josh. It's the two that typically are. We play the role of the host of our podcast, and it's been really fun so far. This is the first time that we've been in one together, but we're also the two folks on the MediaCross team that started our careers on the college and university side. Yeah. And made the decision to come to the dark side. You more recently than I. So, a good percentage of both of our careers were on the college and university side. Me, probably at this point, it's like 40%. Yours probably a whole lot more on the college and university side.
Yeah, probably more towards, the 80, 90%, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And, we do get... Also, side note for our clients, this episode is not meant to poach your employees to come work for MediaCross. That is not the intent. However, we do get questions often.
Sure,
and certainly it was a difficult decision, I think, for both of us to make, to go from working in admissions and enrollment offices to coming to, again, we jokingly call it the dark side. It's not dark over here.
No.
But jokingly call it, the agency side of higher ed. What was kind of your thought process? What were you struggling with?
It's so funny. I think that, we say it's the dark side, but it's kind of, that's how I think colleges and universities kind of like see it. And yes. I am definitely guilty of that situation, which is so funny that we utilize so many agencies and so many folks to help us achieve our enrollment goals. And we utilize them, we pay them gobsmacks of money, right? Like that's a lot of our budget is going to them. Right. And yet this concept of becoming...
one of
that is just this like dirty word, and it's just like this distrust, and it's this weird kind of relationship I think that we have because like we trust you enough to do the job, but just don't take us. And so it definitely was, a transition. I came on board right as the pandemic was hitting. So my last day of campus literally was the first day of the shutdown. Yeah. And so it was me and campus police, and that was it. So what a way to go out from a campus, right?
Right.
But it definitely...
kind of apocalyptic.
Yeah, really, very much so.
I guess this is the end.
This is the end. This is it. Whether you've made the right decision or not, this is the end. And so, we had many conversations prior to me coming on board with MediaCross, and, I was a client, so I was fairly familiar with MediaCross. And, honestly, what finally did it was just the team, really. I loved my experiences with MediaCross. We had great successes when I was on campus. And so I don't know that I would have jumped ship for any other agency or any other team because I just valued the work that we did. I felt that the values of MediaCross really aligned with my personal values and also those that were on campus. And so it was a tough decision. Right. But looking back on it, I almost feel as though maybe I should have made the decision sooner.
Really?
Yeah. Just because the experience that I've had over the last 2 years has been so wildly positive, even in the middle of a pandemic and trying to navigate the newness of it.
Yeah. It was difficult for me to change from working on the college and university side to the agency side, mainly because many years ago, I was looking into working for the vendor that my boss contracted with, which was super awkward, like to be like, hey, I think I might want to go do that, but it was a difficult decision for me. Really, I think the main thing I miss the most is the students. I think that we still here on the agency side have the kind of influence, like we sometimes might, like when we have a discovery visit or something, we get exposure to those students and their energy and their passion for their school and that kind of thing. And I had such a great connection, with the as we all do, right? Like with your student ambassador group, they kind of make going to work fun, and also just the students that you get to work with in that counseling position. I really miss that part,
I do too.
What do you miss about working on the
definitely side? Definitely the students, just to see like growth, just like human growth, and to be able to work with a student and see them come in and be so shy or be unsure of themselves. Right. And then to see the point of them at graduation, it's just how they've grown and how they've stepped into their own. It's just a really impactful thing. And I agree. And that really weighs heavily as you're making these decisions. My life day to day has changed so rapidly of what you're doing that I think when you're kind of questioning whether to transition, is that you have to find those moments that are basically kind of the same thing, but just packaged a little bit differently, right? And so where I was trying to solve challenges and problems that we had on campus, I now have the ability to walk into a meeting with a potential partner or a school, and to already kind of know where their pain points are, right? Like we're all so very different, and every institution is totally in their own world, but at the same time, they're not.
Yeah.
And so 9 times out of 10, enrollment's going to be top priority, right? So like that's where a lot of institutions are. And if it's not that we are declining in enrollment, it's that we want to see this program grow or this. And so having the challenges that I had on a campus, but being able to work with folks to solve those challenges and problems that I maybe never have gotten to solve, or I didn't have the budget to solve, or whatever the situation, you're still reaching students. Yeah. It's just in a little bit of a different package. And like you said, we go on discovery calls with campuses. We did one at the beginning of 2022, and we're doing just a kind of an exploration with students. And there were tears. Right. I mean, it reminds you, you take those little moments and you just put them in your back pocket. Right. When you're having a bad day or things aren't working your way or whatever the situation may be, you bring those up to be like, you're still doing what you sought after. It's just packaged a little bit differently.
Yeah, a little half step back from, every single day. For people that, young people that are thinking about going into teaching, but then decide that maybe that's not for them, working on a college campus, you get a lot of that mentorship and counseling kind of role that influences the growth of young people. That's such a great fallback plan if you thought about education but then decided classroom education might not be for you.
Absolutely.
Admissions is a great way to get all the best parts.
It really is.
Without discipline and all that kind of stuff.
And some of the bad parts. I mean, things that I will not miss is, year over year, the class gets younger and younger and younger, and you get older and older and older. And so there is this constant reminder year over year that you're aging, that you are getting further and further away from the student body. And I mean, one of the last experiences that I had on campus, TikTok was just starting to kind of come out. And they were talking, I had a group of ambassadors sitting around the table or whatever. We were getting ready to do calls that night. And so they're starting to talk about, that their mom's on TikTok. And oh my God, I can't believe my mom's on TikTok. And they're having this whole conversation. I did the one thing you're not supposed to do and asked, how old's your mom? Oh my gosh, she's so old. She's 38. And I went, oh. It was that moment that I was like, you could be my children. Yeah. This is terrible.
That's one thing I don't miss is each year, noticing the birth year of the incoming class. You're like, wait a second. Wait, that's wrong. That's a typo. No way. So I don't miss that part of being either. Wait a second. Okay. Yeah. I do also miss just the school pride, that's a lot. That's always been fun. Something to kind of rally around, and the athletics and the school pride component too. I miss that a lot. As you were saying, and too, in terms of your ability to kind of walk into a new potential campus partner and look at the challenges that they have, and they all, again, we have systemic issues in higher education and enrollment, but they all have they bring unique things to the table for their communities and their students, and have unique challenges. But I think that's actually a pro to working on this side of the business, is that I don't think, having stayed at the same institution for the time that I've been on the agency side, that I would have grown my knowledge of the industry as quickly. Because working with so many different kinds of colleges, community college, because I never worked for a community college, but community colleges and technical colleges and, regional publics and faith-based institutions and all these different facets where you might stand back and think oh, all of these are very similar. They're actually wildly different.
Absolutely.
And to be able to talk with leaders at those institutions and learn more about how where their perspective and through what lens they look at enrollment has been really helpful just in my career.
Absolutely. I think that, you find folks that, have gone to the agency side and then have gone back. I agree. I think you're almost more valuable because you have experiences, yes, with a particular institution, but our experiences are so wide open and so different with a community college versus, I mean, even the purchasing abilities and power and how they process things. So to have that knowledge and that skill set to be able to walk into an institution and kind of adapt yourself, I think is something that is really, truly valuable in terms of the skill set that you maintain.
Yeah. And just the marketing knowledge, right? Because as admissions and enrollment folks, there are certainly lots of admissions and enrollment folks have a solid marketing knowledge base, but there's so much more out there that is not inside the industry, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely, I thought I was at least somewhat savvy. And then you get to decide, I'm like, I've got a lot to learn. Yeah. I've got a lot to catch up on. And so I agree. I think that it just expands your skill set, your knowledge far vastly than I ever expected. I mean, that was, I think, the really big surprise for me is that, you pride yourself on, when you're on a campus, you pride yourself on your team and the close relationships that you have. And that, again, was a little bit of a concern. And what I didn't realize is that school pride now doesn't stop at my institution. When we have partner schools, when I first came on, we were working with a client that had huge successes, like immediately out of the gate when we came on. And it's just, you get to be their cheerleader. You get to support and celebrate and cheer them on. And so your kind of your college family only grows.
Bigger, yeah.
And so you work with folks, I had the opportunity of presenting at a conference last month. And so I presented with one of my first contracts. And this is the first time that I got to meet her in person because of the pandemic. And it was such an exciting moment. And you kind of, your family just grows and it just kind of extends well past. And I think that was one of the nice surprises that I really got that keeps me engaged and keeps me going.
Yeah. You mentioned conferences before, but also speaking at a conference. I think that's one of the cons is the like green badge of shame on an exhibitor floor hall. Like everybody's like, don't look directly at the exhibitor, the people with the exhibitor badges. I promise we're not always trying to sell you something. We just want to say hello.
That's it. That's exactly it. I think the worst part is like, it's not even so much when you're on the floor, but if like you attend a session, it's like, why are you here? Like, you shouldn't be here. This is not for you. And I'm like, we want to
We also would like to professionally develop.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we're not bad people, promise. I don't have a contract in my back pocket that I'm going to try to slide over to you.
Just a few extras in my bag, just in case. So that is one thing that I miss is like, just being one of them.
Sure, definitely.
But thankfully, most of our clients, they come and say hello.
Oh, absolutely.
They are our friends. But you were also talking about, seeing the success of multiple partners versus your own, institution when you're working with one. And I think that that's a really fun thing. You get to influence the success of more than one college or university, but at the same time, that can also be a lot of pressure, right? Like because when you're focused on one particular institution and it so well, right? Like kind of from the inside out, it's a different relationship with the numbers and all of that kind of stuff on this side of the desk.
It really is.
Which is interesting, but also it could be a pro or a con. It also sometimes is, I feel like I'm a glutton for punishment sometimes, like to be accountable for so many colleges and universities, but we make it work and we do a really good job. And I think that's where you get the pride. But I do kind of also, though, from a workflow perspective, right? I do miss a little bit like the predictable cycle of admissions work, right? Like you kind of always know what's coming. On this side, it's a different day every day.
It is. And I think that's kind of, it's exciting. It's to be on this side of it now because you get into a flow when you're on a campus. I mean, come graduation, campus is going to clear out and you're going to love the quietness of campus. And it's just usually this 2 weeks of just beautiful being able to get your work done and not being able to go home at 5 and not 7. I mean, it's just, and then after those 2 weeks, you're like, okay, bring them back. I'm ready for more. I'm ready for excitement again on the campus. But I tell you what, I have loved being on this side. We can leave for the holiday break. And I don't have to go back and check the mail to find out if we've got transcripts coming in. I don't have to be checking the email account the entire holidays. I don't need to be pulling enrollment reports. So that's something that I definitely highly value now is that when we get time off, it's a true time off. I don't have to try and make accommodations to where, we've got somebody that's checking things during the holiday break and coming in and so forth.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's part of the game, right? It's what we do. It's what we had to do.
It is.
But I do not miss that portion.
the holiday work and the weekends.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we also, conferences are often on the weekends. So it's not like we get weekend free life. But the visit days and all of that kind of stuff, that starts to add up and can be tiring. But
if you're really considering, crossing over, I mean, definitely, I'm a big pros and cons kind of guy.
Yeah.
And so definitely try to kind of outweigh everything. But at the same time, I think that it's hard to navigate when it is so foreign, it's so unknown. But I mean, we talk about fit so much, right?
Yeah.
College is such a fit. It's everything, finding the right fit. That I think it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
Is if you are looking at an agency, find the right fit.
Yes, definitely. Find the right fit. And, I don't, because there is a lot of struggle, I think, on college and university sides to keep admissions counselors, right? It's not necessarily an easy job to have. But I do, like you said, I do think that there is a lot of value, at least to consider kind of an agency side type of role to help you kind of advance your career. I think mid-level admissions counselors because sometimes too, there is a struggle in an admissions or an enrollment office. There's kind of nowhere to go, right? Because an associate director or something, that they sometimes stay in their roles, for a very long time. And you kind of got to go up that ladder. That if that is the case where you are jumping out to an agency side, gain a lot of marketing, CRM, that kind of skill set, and then going back at a higher level is a great way to advance your career.
I think that's exceptional and great advice. Because I mean, when I was at my first institution, that's exactly what was happening is I was having admissions counselors remain in the same role and life happens, right? So you were a road runner. I mean, that's how I started my career.
Yep,
I mean, I was on the road for 4 months at a time and I loved it. It was great. But you started getting in relationships, you start getting a dog, you have kids, and then all of a sudden you don't want to be on the road as much.
Right.
But there's nowhere to go. I mean, typically directors and VPs often, I think it's changed somewhat now, but have often stay once they get to an institution that they are comfortable with and they enjoy, they can stay for a while. And so when you are looking to advance your career, movement is typically the only way to go unless you're looking at an agency. So I think it's a spectacular advice.
Yeah. Josh, thanks for sitting down and chatting with me today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.